I ain't no cop. I ain't no lawyer. I watch Law and Order. You know what I'm saying? And the way this is going, it looks like a certain type of thing is going down. Chaotic. It's hard to actually figure out what's what, but it's becoming clearer. It's becoming clearer and clearer, but...
For years, the Vegas tragedy felt like a closed case. The neon lights of the Strip, that BMW speeding through the night, and the sudden eruption of gunfire that was said to end an era. But now, everything we thought we knew has been ripped apart. Mopreme Shakur, Tupac's own brother, just dropped a bombshell that flips the entire story upside down. He's claiming the version of events we were fed was nothing but a carefully crafted cover-up, a script written to bury the real truth.
They laid the blueprint for me, and they're not here anymore. So I always want to make sure that, you know, through me, you know what I'm saying, through all of us, so, you know.
And here's the wild part. He suggests Pac might not have died that September night at all. Instead, he could have been forced into hiding, with his biggest threat not being some street rival, but one of the most powerful moguls hip-hop has ever seen. And yes, the name right in the middle of it all is Diddy. The ground is shaking because this isn't just internet gossip or recycled conspiracy theories anymore. This is family, blood. Mopreme looked straight into the camera.
Boy, Puffy called me though. Puffy called me back in the day. He called me, he was like, I just want you to know I ain't have nothing to do with your brother's,
On Piers Morgan's show with that same piercing calm his brother once carried. And when the subject of Diddy's endless denials came up, he didn't flinch, he didn't dodge. He fired back with words that can't be ignored. He laid it out with no hesitation. He had doubts, serious doubts. And then he dropped a chilling reminder. Diddy himself was told nearly 20 years ago, the truth is still yet to come out, so we gonna see. Well, time has passed, and now it feels like we really are starting to see. If Shakur's own brother won't buy Diddy's innocence, how much of that story we were spoon-fed about Vegas can we actually trust? This part isn't hearsay, it's fact. Back in 2008, Diddy personally reached out to Mopreme through radio host Big Boy, asking for a sit-down. Just picture that, the so-called king of bad boy, feeling the heat so bad he picked up the phone to contact the Shakur family himself.
That's Puffy's homie. You know what I mean? They have a relationship, they're friendly, they know each other.
With his entourage by his side. And when that meeting happened, Diddy swore up and down that he had no role in the shooting. But Mopreme wasn't just nodding along. He checked him right there, telling him straight, the truth always comes out. Now fast forward 27 years, and Mopreme admits that those words look more true than ever. Because if Diddy's denials were rock solid, why are cracks busting open right now? Why do whispers keep surfacing from insiders? People who were actually in those rooms, walking those streets, seeing the moves firsthand. Something doesn't add up, and this is where things get darker. Mopreme's doubts don't stand alone in the wind. They connect back to a trail of whispers stretching all the way to 1996. Insiders in Los Angeles clubs once claimed Diddy had a so-called cleanup squad, a quiet crew that swept in after messy, dangerous moments, making problems vanish before daylight could expose them. Witnesses who once looked ready to talk suddenly went silent. Cases froze in limbo. Files that should have held answers just vanished without a trace. Could this be why every attempt to solve Tupac's case seemed cursed from the start?
I think that they don't want, if they was in any of those freak-off tapes, if they played a part in any of those Diddy sessions, they don't want it to get out to the general public to make up their...
And why, after almost 30 years, only one man, Keith D, has been officially charged, while dozens of names tied to the story never even touched the courtroom? The question hangs heavy. Was someone making sure the truth never broke daylight? Even law enforcement circles can't ignore it anymore. Federal records reveal that in one secretly recorded police interview years back, Diddy's name didn't come up once or twice. It came up more than 40 times in connection to Tupac's hit, 40 times on tape. And Keith D, the Southside Crip now sitting in court, claimed flat out that Diddy put a bounty on both Tupac and Suge Knight. Millions of dollars on their heads. Millions. He described a chilling moment where Diddy allegedly leaned in and said, "I'll give anything for that dude's head." If that was just drunken trash talk, why was the line repeated word for word in multiple retellings? And bigger question, why do prosecutors still keep that tape buried deep in their files decades later? What's on it that can't see daylight? Meanwhile, Diddy's empire is crumbling in real time. Once untouchable, now arrested for racketeering, staring down trial for trafficking and coercion. His name is no longer just tied to wild parties and reckless power plays.
Keisha, I'm not gonna live, past a certain time, or, I know I'm gonna get shot up. He knew that. That was, the one thing that he did know.
It's now entangled in something far darker, something that reaches back to the very night Tupac's life was ripped away. And then came the raids on Diddy's mansions, raids that ripped the mask off his private world. Among the luxury and chaos, agents reportedly uncovered files stamped with a single explosive word, Cuba. That word alone reignites the most stubborn rumor of all, that Tupac Shakur staged his own exit and fled straight to the island where his aunt, Assata Shakur, has lived in exile for decades. For years, fans have whispered about grainy clips from Havana's side streets, a man with Pac's same stride, same shaved head, same fire in his eyes. Were those files proof that Diddy wasn't just linked to the shooting, but also to burying the truth of Pac's disappearance? Could he have been managing the myth itself, pulling strings to control the story? And don't forget Michael Nice, Tupac's former bodyguard.
Part of the indictment, that's somewhat like a blackmail. He was blackmailing people to be in the freak-offs. So that's federal. That could be that's a federal charge. He can't blackmail people to say, yo, listen here, you did it once and you're gonna do it again. That ain't gonna make it with the government or nobody.
He once swore he personally helped smuggle Pac out. He claimed even Castro sanctioned the exile. According to Nice, the hospital switch was real, a body swap to trick the world, before Pac slipped onto a jet headed for Barbados and later touched down in Cuba. People called it outrageous at the time, until Nice suddenly vanished, right when he promised to release proof. So ask yourself, when federal agents dig up Cuban references buried inside Diddy's files years later, is that coincidence or confirmation? Was Michael Nice telling the truth the whole time? And if so, what kind of receipts did Diddy keep that tied him to this? These aren't just rumors anymore. They're puzzle pieces that could change everything. He always knew, deep down, that something wasn't right, and the unanswered questions just keep stacking higher and higher. Why did no bystanders claim to see the shooter on one of the busiest nights in Vegas?
I ain't trying to say that's some kind of conspiracy, and maybe some other shit was going on, or this, that, and the third. But brother, he had that conversation with Kay Slade 2 weeks before he was murdered.
Why was Tupac's height and weight listed incorrectly on the coroner's report? Why did the cremator suddenly retire right after handling his case? And why did Suge Knight himself tell TMZ in 2014, why you think nobody been arrested? 'Cause Shakur not gone. Each detail by itself feels strange, but together they form a map pointing straight at deception. And now, with Mo Preem's words ricocheting through headlines, we're forced to ask, is this story finally about to shatter wide open? Mo Preem remains careful, measured, but even his restraint speaks volumes. If he was sure Diddy had nothing to do with it, he would have cleared the air. Instead, he circles back to the doubts, the suspicions that just won't die, repeating once more, we're gonna see. For a man who's carried his brother's pain for nearly 30 years, every word is heavy, and he doesn't waste a single one. The message is clear. The time for lies is almost over, and the truth has claws. And those claws, they look like they might be coming straight for Diddy. So what do you think? Has Mo Preem cracked the door open on hip-hop's darkest secret? Or is there still one final twist waiting in the shadows? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.
3 law firms on retainer. I don't know how much money is coming in, but I know that a lot of money is going out every single month for Diddy.
Because the next revelation could drop any second, and you won't want to miss it. Meanwhile, prosecutors in Diddy's current trial are already hitting roadblocks. Witnesses are vanishing into thin air. One alleged victim, listed in indictments only as Victim 3, has completely disappeared, so much so that even her own lawyer can't reach her. If this is happening right now, in plain view of the courts, then what might have gone down back in 1996 when the stakes were even higher? Is this the modern echo of that rumored cleanup squad? Could the same shadowy tactics that buried voices around the Vegas shooting still be echoing today, woven into the machinery of Diddy's empire? And this is exactly why the Cuba theory just won't die. Every time fresh evidence leaks, every time another insider speaks out, Havana's shadow creeps back into the story. Was Diddy holding back knowledge that Tupac survived, tucked away in a quiet corner of the Caribbean? Did he build power, profit, and untouchable influence by ensuring the world believed Pac was gone, while secretly knowing otherwise?
But I'm still a little suspicious about the timing and how it's all rolled out here.
What exactly was in those Cuba-stamped files that agents tore through during the mansion raids? What truth was so dangerous it had to stay hidden? Because behind the glittering awards, platinum plaques, and champagne-soaked after-parties, Bad Boy Records is starting to look less like a record label and more like a criminal syndicate dressed up in silk. The stories spilling out now are darker, dirtier, and heavier than anything the East Coast versus West Coast rivalry ever put on wax. And the cracks in the empire are only getting wider. We're talking about accusations so disturbing they flip the spotlight into a blazing interrogation lamp. Prosecutors say those infamous freak-off gatherings weren't just wild nights of excess. They were orchestrated marathons of control. Diddy allegedly forced people into humiliating acts, kept the cameras rolling, and then weaponized the footage to keep everyone in line. Layer that with trafficking charges, racketeering counts, and the eerie whispers of silenced witnesses, and suddenly, the glossy image of Diddy as hip-hop's ultimate mogul mutates into something far darker. The figure of a kingpin running a secret society behind the scenes. Think about it. Bad Boy Records wasn't just serving up radio anthems, it was operating like a fortress, a machine of loyalty locked in place with fear. Ex-associates have painted the same chilling picture, a world where saying no to Diddy wasn't on the menu. Favors quickly turned into debts, and those debts, they could get ugly fast. If that machinery was already running in 1996, then it's not a stretch to imagine how the aftermath of Tupac's shooting could have been managed, manipulated, and buried alive. Witnesses vanish without explanation. Files disappear from the system. People who dared to speak up either backtrack their words or vanish from the spotlight altogether. So is it really shocking the Vegas investigation felt cursed from the very first day? Now, with federal agents ripping through every hidden corner of Diddy's empire, it feels like the closet doors at Bad Boy can't hold any longer, and every skeleton is rattling its way into the light.
Named Diddy 77 times in court documents related to Tupac.
The most tantalizing skeleton of all might be the mysterious Cuba files, a phrase that slipped out of raid inventories like a spark tossed into a room drenched in gasoline. Federal agents cataloged box after box of documents and digital drives during their sweep of Diddy's mansions, and tucked among them was this cryptic label that has everyone buzzing. We don't know what's hidden inside, but the speculation is already spiraling into overdrive. Could these files contain encrypted messages reaching back to the 90s, secret records of hush money payments, or even raw proof that Tupac slipped into exile instead of a coffin? Just the idea has conspiracy circles on fire, because it syncs with decades of alleged sightings in Havana. For years, locals in old Havana claimed they saw a man with Tupac's build, ducking through narrow alleys, sipping coffee at backstreet cafes, and vanishing before anyone could get too close. Now imagine if Diddy really kept a private stash of notes, snapshots, or recordings tied to those whispers. That would suggest not just awareness, but active involvement in feeding and protecting the illusion.
Surprise. You know, we all know who he is and how he get down, so that don't surprise me.
The Cuba files may not just be a label on a box. They could be the missing link tying rumor directly to reality. And what makes it all the more chilling? The timing. These files weren't uncovered in some cold case sweep. They surfaced during raids aimed at trafficking and coercion, crimes of power and silence. The overlap hints at something darker, that Diddy's alleged double life as mogul and shadow boss wasn't just a moment in time. It stretched across decades, with one crime shielding another in a tangled web of secrets. If investigators crack open those Cuba files and uncover even a shred of communication with Cuban intermediaries, it won't just be big, it'll be explosive. A raid meant to expose Diddy's present-day empire could accidentally detonate hip-hop's oldest and most haunting mystery. But here's where the psychological dagger cuts deepest. If the Cuba files exist in detail, then the spotlight doesn't just burn on Diddy anymore. Think about it. Smuggling and protecting a figure as famous as Tupac would have required layers of cooperation. Political allies, financial backers, maybe even intelligence players who decided it was worth keeping him alive but hidden.
it sort of seems like, they're trying to minimalize it to just gain.
A network like that doesn't last nearly 30 years without silence being enforced at the very top. And that forces the question, how many powerful names have been complicit in this cover-up, and just how far would they go to keep it locked away? For the Shakur family, the existence of those files would be more than answers. It would be a wound ripped wide open. Proof of survival after all these years would also mean proof of betrayal. It would mean that while millions mourned in the streets and hip-hop crowned its mythos around a fallen king, select insiders were profiting from the illusion, manipulating narratives, cashing in on royalties, and weaponizing Pac's legacy for control. The weight of that kind of revelation wouldn't just crush Diddy, it could topple reputations across the entire industry, shaking hip-hop's foundation to its core. And this may be why the whispers around the Cuba files carry such heavy danger. We're standing on the edge of something unprecedented. If these documents ever see daylight, they could either validate decades of suspicion and prove the story of Tupac Shakur is far from over, or they could expose something even darker, that Pac's fate wasn't sealed by random bullets on the Vegas Strip, but by an unholy alliance of moguls, politicians, and power players who found his disappearance useful. Either way, the Cuba files hint that the truth, whatever it looks like, will be more shocking than anyone dares to imagine. And then, of course, there's Suge Knight. Love him or hate him, Suge remains the one man alive who's seen both sides of this bloody feud from the inside. He was literally behind the wheel the night Tupac was gunned down. He survived the chaos, built an empire of his own, and left behind a legacy stained with shadows. Now he sits in a prison cell on an unrelated conviction, stripped of power, with his name hanging by a thread. But what does a man like Suge still have left to play with? Revenge, redemption, or one last chance to control the narrative on his own terms? For years, Suge has teased the possibility like a master of mind games, dropping comments like landmines that set the streets buzzing. In a 2014 interview, he said flat out that Tupac wasn't gone. He even threw out the question, "Why you think nobody been arrested?" hinting that authorities knew far more than they were ever willing to admit. And if Mo Preem is the one firing the opening shots today, Suge Knight might just be the man holding the ammunition strong enough to finally blow this entire case wide open. Picture it, Suge Knight taking the stand, finally unloading every detail of what really went down on that Vegas Strip. Or worse, imagine him confirming that Tupac staged his exit all along. Suge would have every incentive to aim the finger straight at Diddy, painting his old rival as the mastermind of a deception that's lasted nearly 3 decades. Could Suge be sitting on documents, recordings, or raw first-hand knowledge the rest of us only whisper about? It's possible, and if so, the fallout wouldn't just be loud, it would be nuclear. Suge's back is against the wall. He has nothing left to lose, nothing to protect, except the chance to carve his name into history as the one man bold enough to blow the lid off hip-hop's darkest secret. And all of this converges on one chilling possibility. What if the accusations are real? If federal prosecutors prove that Diddy wasn't just hosting freak-offs and shady parties, but orchestrating a full-scale criminal enterprise, then everything in his past becomes fair game for re-examination. The bounty claims, the missing witnesses, the Cuba files, the whispered ties to Tupac's disappearance, all of it could end up dragged into the harsh glare of a courtroom spotlight. And if investigators stumble across even a single shred of evidence linking Diddy's empire to Tupac's fate, then hip-hop history won't just be debated in barbershops and blogs, it'll be rewritten in real time. The world wouldn't just be watching a mogul fall, we'd be watching one of music's most powerful titans exposed as the man who may have tried to erase its brightest star. Picture the headlines, screaming that Tupac Shakur never died, that he fled to Cuba under threat from the very man now staring down life in prison. The shockwaves wouldn't just rattle the industry, they'd tear apart the trust in everything we thought we knew about the so-called golden age of rap. Every interview, every denial, every award show moment featuring Diddy would suddenly be replayed with suspicion, dripping with new meaning. And the question haunting all of us would be brutally simple. Just how far was Diddy willing to go to silence the truth? Right now, we're dangling on the edge of revelation. If Mo Preem's words were the first crack in the wall, if Suge Knight still holds the dynamite, and if federal prosecutors keep yanking on thread after thread, we could finally watch the whole tapestry rip wide open. If Tupac is alive, And if Diddy orchestrated a decades-long deception to bury that truth, then this scandal won't just stain reputations, it could annihilate the last illusions of hip-hop's untouchable royalty. So what do you believe? Was Tupac truly lost on that Vegas strip, or has he been living in exile all these years while Diddy built an empire off his disappearance? Drop your theories in the comments, because this mystery looks closer than ever to cracking wide open. And before you go, don't forget to hit that like button, share this story, and subscribe for more jaw-dropping updates. See you on the next video. Because trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.